The Combat Information Center aboard the guided missile destroyer operates at reduced lighting. The watch has been running for 4 hours without incident. Consoles glow amber and green in the recycled air of the compartment. The tactical action officer stands at the central display, arms folded, watching the radar picture. The Persian Gulf is active tonight, commercial traffic, helicopter transits, routine radar returns scattered across the northern approaches to the Strait of Hormuz. Nothing unusual. Nothing that demands immediate attention. Then the picture changes. A contact appears on the long-range air search radar, fast-moving, high-altitude, climbing steeply from the Iranian coastline near Bandar Abbas. The system classifies the track automatically. The tactical action officer watches it develop. He watches the trajectory curve upward, then begin its steep arc back toward the surface. The system updates its classification. The report from the radar operator arrives in a flat, measured voice, a voice trained specifically for this kind of moment. The track is assessed as a ballistic missile. It is inbound. 110. The Strait of Hormuz narrows to roughly 21 nautical miles at its tightest point, a maritime choke point through which approximately 20% of the world's traded oil transits every single day. To the north lies Iran. To the south, Oman. Every vessel moving through that corridor, military or commercial, passes within unobstructed observation range of Iranian shore-based radar systems, sensor arrays, and missile batteries that have been positioned, reinforced, and expanded over the course of 3 decades of deliberate strategic investment. For the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, the Strait and the broader Persian Gulf represent one of the most persistently contested operating environments on Earth. Forward-deployed surface combatants maintain continuous presence in the region, conducting freedom of navigation operations, escorting high-value assets, and providing layered ballistic missile defense coverage for regional partners. The mission profile is deliberate. The risk calculus is understood at every level of the chain of command, from the watch officer standing his rotation in the Gulf to the senior commanders at Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Iran's military has invested heavily in anti-access and area denial capabilities specifically engineered to contest American naval operations in this narrow geography. Among those capabilities is the Al-Qadr, a medium-range anti-ship ballistic missile developed from the Shahab ballistic missile series. According to defense analysts, the Al-Qadr incorporates a terminal guidance package designed to track and engage moving surface vessels in their final descent phase. Its reported range exceeds 1,500 kilometers. Its terminal maneuvering profile has been characterized, by multiple Western defense assessments, as a deliberate architectural attempt to defeat ship-based intercept systems. That is the missile now arcing through the atmosphere above the Gulf. That is the contact on the destroyer's radar screen. 250. The warning arrives first from overhead, from a U.S. space-based infrared system satellite that detects the thermal bloom of a solid-fuel missile launch within seconds of ignition. The launch data is processed, formatted, and transmitted to theater assets automatically. By the time the queuing report reaches the destroyer's Combat Information Center, the ship's own and Spy 1D radar has already picked up the track independently. The data links are active. The common tactical picture is shared across multiple platforms simultaneously, binding the response before any single voice has issued a single order. The tactical action officer does not wait for confirmation from higher command. The engagement parameters for this threat category have been pre-authorized under standing rules of engagement. He directs the radar to full active emission and initiates the engagement timeline against the classified inbound contact. The order is acknowledged without delay. Every movement in the compartment that follows is deliberate, professional, and exactly what repeated training has prepared this crew to execute. The destroyer's vertical launch system carries SM-3 Block IIA interceptors optimized specifically for exo-atmospheric ballistic missile intercept. If the engagement geometry is favorable, the SM-3 will attempt to defeat the Al-Qadr above the atmosphere, long before its terminal phase begins. If that window is missed or degraded, the fallback defensive layer, SM-2 Block IIB interceptors and the ship's close-in weapon system will be sequenced into the engagement automatically. The tactical action officer is thinking in layers. He is thinking in timelines. He is not thinking about outcomes he cannot control. 410. Simultaneously, a second U.S. surface combatant operating approximately 60 nautical miles to the southwest has received the identical data link picture. The cruiser's tactical action officer coordinates with the destroyer through the Link 16 tactical data network. 2 ships are now tracking the same ballistic missile contact. 2 independent engagement solutions are being computed in parallel. The underlying principle is redundancy, deliberate, structured, and practiced until it operates without conscious thought. At a forward-deployed air operations center elsewhere in the theater, the air defense duty officer pulls the contact onto the primary display. Patrol aircraft are redirected to holding orbits clear of the projected debris corridor. Commercial airspace coordination is initiated with regional aviation authorities. The response is distributed across platforms, commands, and communication architectures simultaneously, moving faster than any individual decision-maker could sustain alone. The system is doing the work that decades of doctrine and interoperability exercises designed it to do. The Al-Qadr is now in its mid-course phase, climbing toward apogee at an altitude that briefly positions it at the boundary of the atmosphere. From any surface vantage point, it is invisible, a cold, ballistic object traveling at hypersonic velocity through near vacuum. Inside the Combat Information Center, it is a blinking track icon on a green tactical display. The crew watches it the way a surgeon watches a vital signs monitor during a critical procedure, with absolute attention and controlled stillness. 535. What distinguishes the Al-Qadr from earlier ballistic missile threats, and what makes it operationally significant in a way that older designs are not, is its reported terminal behavior. According to defense sources, the missile's re-entry vehicle incorporates a maneuvering guidance system capable of executing lateral course corrections as it descends toward a moving surface target. The technical purpose of that capability is not subtle. It is designed to defeat radar-guided intercept solutions that are built upon the assumption of a predictable, unaltered ballistic trajectory. Standard ballistic missile defense engagement geometry is computed against a projected impact point. The interceptor is not aimed at the missile itself, it is aimed at where the missile will be, based on its current measured track and calculated physics. A maneuvering re-entry vehicle has the ability to alter that projected point mid-descent. It forces the interceptor fire control system to recalculate. Under sufficient lateral displacement from the original trajectory, it can, in theory, open a gap between the intercept vehicle and its target that the guidance system cannot close in the time remaining. The question now is whether the Al-Qadr's actual terminal performance matches its reported design specifications. The Aegis combat system aboard the destroyer is computing that question in real time, updating its engagement solution with every new radar data point. The answer will determine the intercept geometry. The intercept geometry will determine the outcome. 7 o'clock. The SM-3 Block IIA launch sequence initiates. The vertical launch system hatch cycles open. The interceptor exits the canister on a column of pressurized gas, rotates to its assigned intercept heading, and begins its climb on first stage burn. The destroyer's fire control radar tracks both the outgoing interceptor and the inbound target simultaneously, feeding updated mid-course guidance corrections to the SM-3 through its uplink channel throughout the boost phase. The correction loop is fully automated, a machine-to-machine exchange occurring at a tempo no human operator can replicate. In the Combat Information Center, the tactical display shows two converging track icons moving toward a common point above the Gulf. The crew watches without speaking. The tactical action officer stands with both hands resting flat on the console edge, eyes fixed on the screen. The time to intercept counter runs down in seconds. No one in the compartment moves unnecessarily. No one raises their voice. The room operates at the pace the situation demands, and the situation demands precision, not speed. The SM-3 reaches exoatmospheric altitude on third stage burn. Its kinetic kill vehicle separates from the booster and activates its own terminal infrared seeker. It is searching for the Al-Qadr's re-entry vehicle, which is now crossing back into the upper atmosphere on its steep descent arc toward the ship below. 8:20. The intercept occurs at an altitude of approximately 150 kilometers above the Persian Gulf, well above the atmosphere, in the absolute silence above everything. The kinetic energy released at the moment of collision is equivalent to the impact of a vehicle traveling at multiple kilometers per second. The Al-Qadr's re-entry vehicle does not survive the engagement. The radar display updates. The inbound track disappears from the tactical picture. The tactical action officer's voice, when he speaks, carries no elevation. He delivers the intercept assessment to the Combat Information Center in the same measured register he has used for every update in the preceding 9 minutes. The report is acknowledged. The watch continues. The ship holds its position. But the situation is not resolved. An intercept is not a conclusion. It is a comma in a longer sentence, one whose next clause will be written by people at a level of the command chain far above this compartment. 9:40. Within 15 minutes of the launch detection, the 5th Fleet Commander has been informed. Within 30 minutes, the incident report is moving through CENTCOM to the Joint Chiefs. The event has passed simultaneously into the domain of policy, legal review, and strategic communication, dimensions that the destroyer's crew has no visibility into from their station below the waterline. Their role in this engagement has been performed. What follows belongs to a different set of decision-makers operating on a different timeline. The attack, if subsequent intelligence assessment confirms it as a deliberate, authorized act rather than an unauthorized launch or a catastrophic misread of orders, represents a threshold that has not previously been crossed. A state actor has fired a ballistic missile at a United States Navy warship operating in international waters. The legal, political, and military consequences of that act do not resolve themselves. They require decisions at the highest levels of the executive branch, informed by intelligence that is still being assembled and evaluated. What the military instrument can demonstrate, in the immediate term, is readiness. Fifth Fleet surges additional surface assets toward the strait. A carrier strike group operating in the northern Arabian Sea is directed to increase alert posture across its air wing and surface screen. Submarine activity in the region, classified at every level of operational detail, is adjusted in accordance with contingency plans developed long before this night. 11:05. The destroyer remains on station. Its crew does not stand down. The Combat Information Center continues to maintain the radar picture, watched now with a quality of attention that every operator in the compartment carries but does not discuss. A second launch from Iranian territory cannot be eliminated as a possibility. That possibility is not spoken aloud. It is tracked, prepared for, and held in the disciplined awareness of every person in the room. The cruiser to the southwest maintains its position and its ballistic missile defense coverage of the southern strait approaches. A P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft is repositioned overhead to provide layered sensor coverage and signals intelligence collection across the Iranian coastline. The electronic picture, the full, multi-sensor operational awareness of everything occurring in and around the strait, is being compiled in real time and passed continuously up the reporting chain. On the Iranian side of the water, according to defense sources, military units across multiple commands have moved to elevated readiness. The nature and scope of those adjustments remain unconfirmed at this stage. Whether the Al-Qadr launch was ordered from the highest levels of Iran's military establishment, or originated from a decision made at a subordinate command node, is a question the intelligence community is actively working. The answer matters enormously, not for the tactical outcome already determined, but for the response options now being considered. 12:30. It is in this space, between the intercept and the response, between the military act and the authorized political decision, that the most consequential developments of this engagement will occur. The missile was defeated. The ship is undamaged. Every member of the crew is accounted for. But none of those facts answer the question of what happens in the next 48 hours, and under whose authority, and within what legal and strategic framework. Defense officials, according to reporting from multiple Western sources, are assembling a targeting intelligence package covering the launch site, the specific missile battery involved, the command and control nodes assessed as authorizing the launch, and the physical infrastructure that enables Iranian coastal ballistic missile operations in the Bandar Abbas region. That package will inform a proportionate response, should one be authorized by the National Command Authority. The specific options under active consideration are not disclosed. They are not required to be. What is visible to any analyst with access to the regional maritime picture is the message being communicated through positioning rather than statement. U.S. surface combatants are still on station. The carrier is now closer. The strait remains under continuous multi-sensor coverage. The message requires no press release. 1350. The Al-Qadr program represents a studied, long-term effort to reduce the operational buffer that has historically existed between shore-based missile forces and forward-deployed American naval assets. The weapons development, according to open-source defense analysis, reflects years of systematic observation of U.S. naval operating patterns in the Gulf, combined with a deliberate engineering effort to develop a system capable of threatening American surface combatants at ranges that previously provided a meaningful margin of relative safety. That margin, if this engagement confirms the reported performance parameters of the Al-Qadr's terminal guidance, has been measurably compressed. The engagement tonight constitutes one data point, a successful intercept achieved under a specific set of geometric, atmospheric, and electronic conditions. It does not constitute a guarantee of identical outcomes across every future engagement scenario. The Aegis combat system performed as designed. The SM-3 interceptor performed as designed. Both facts carry significant operational weight. Neither of them resolves the underlying strategic problem that this engagement has made tangible. The lesson that every tactical commander reviewing this event will absorb is not complicated. The window for a successful ballistic missile defense intercept is narrow, the margin for degraded system performance is small, and the interval between initial detection and required engagement decision is measured in single-digit minutes. Those constraints will drive doctrine revision, fleet posture adjustments, and procurement priorities across the surface navy for years. 1515. In the operational days following the engagement, diplomatic channels between Washington and Tehran function through third-party intermediaries, as they have for the better part of 4 decades. The United States formally presents a detailed evidentiary package of the launch to allied governments and to the United Nations Security Council. Iran's formal response, according to open-source reporting, is characteristically ambiguous, neither claiming nor explicitly denying organizational responsibility for the event. That ambiguity is a deliberate instrument. It preserves Iran's space to de-escalate without requiring public acknowledgement. It simultaneously preserves its ability to claim internal credit if the political environment shifts. For Western analysts familiar with the grammar of Iranian deterrence communication, the ambiguity is itself a recognized signal, one that says the act was intentional, the message was sent, and the next move belongs to Washington. The United States conducts a precision strike against the coastal missile battery assessed by intelligence as responsible for the Al-Qadr launch. The strike package is composed of naval aviation assets launched from the Carrier Strike Group. The designated target set is the fire control radar and command infrastructure of the coastal defense battery, not personnel facilities, not logistics infrastructure, not adjacent civilian structures. The targeting is deliberate, bounded, and constructed to fall within the proportionality framework of the laws of armed conflict and within the specific parameters authorized by the National Command Authority. 1645. The battery is destroyed. The launch site is assessed as inoperable. No aircraft involved in the strike are lost. No additional ballistic missile launches from Iranian territory occur in the hours following the strike. The Strait of Hormuz remains open. Commercial tanker traffic continues its scheduled transits. Fifth Fleet maintains its patrol schedule without modification. The tankers move through the Hormuz as they have for decades, largely unaware of what the preceding 72 hours contained. The guided missile destroyer completes its scheduled patrol period and returns to its forward operating base for replenishment and maintenance. The expended vertical launch cells will be reloaded. The complete tactical and sensor data from the engagement will be extracted, reviewed, and distributed to Aegis-equipped platforms across the fleet. The crew that conducts the next patrol through those same waters will enter the strait with a more precise understanding of what an Al-Qadr engagement signature looks like on their displays in the seconds before the intercept decision must be made. That is how operational advantage is maintained over time, not through singular acts, but through the accumulation of technical data, the refinement of doctrine, and the continuous distribution of hard-won experience across the fleet. 1758. The Strait of Hormuz remains what it has always been, a narrow, contested passage shaped by geography, history, and the permanently conflicting interests of the nations that border it and the nations whose economies depend on what moves through it. The American naval presence in that waterway is not a temporary deployment posture. It is a permanent structural element of the regional security architecture, a continuous, physical signal that the United States will not yield freedom of navigation in international waters to coercion, to threat of force, or to the ballistic arc of a weapon launched from a coastal battery 200 miles away. The crew that survived this engagement will rotate home on their scheduled relief date. They will be replaced by another crew trained to identical standards, equipped with the same weapon systems, standing the same watches. The mission does not pause for the rotation. The strait does not close while the relief is conducted. The watch is handed off and the patrol continues, as it has continued through every preceding rotation. Somewhere on the Iranian coastline, analysts suggest, the results of this engagement are being studied with the same careful attention that American planners are applying to the same data. The missile did not reach its target, not because it malfunctioned, but because it was defeated by a system designed, procured, manned, and maintained specifically to defeat it. That outcome was not accidental. It is the product of investment, doctrine, and thousands of hours of training conducted in anticipation of exactly this moment. 1918. The ballistic missile threat to U.S. naval surface forces operating in contested maritime environments is not receding. Defense analysts assess that Iran's ballistic missile development program continues to advance in reported range, terminal accuracy, and maneuvering guidance sophistication. The engagement near the Strait of Hormuz offers one clear answer to the question of how the U.S. Navy intends to meet that threat as it continues to evolve, with layered, redundant, pre-authorized defensive systems, crewed by trained personnel operating under doctrine written and rehearsed in anticipation of exactly this scenario. The outcome of the next engagement is not guaranteed by the outcome of this one. The conditions will be different. The geometry may be less favorable. The missile may carry refinements that this intercept did not account for. None of that is reason for pessimism. It is reason for sustained investment, continuous training, and the kind of operational discipline that keeps a crew functional and lethal at 3 in the morning when the picture on the radar screen changes without warning. The ship is intact. The strait is open. The watch continues. If the history of naval deterrence in narrow and contested waterways teaches any enduring lesson, it is this: the boundary between control and catastrophe in maritime geography of this kind is not measured in nautical miles. It is measured in seconds of reaction time, in the readiness of a crew standing a night watch in a confined and dimly lit compartment, and in the quiet, sustained competence of people who spent years training for a moment they hoped would never arrive and who, when it did, were ready for it. This was one of those moments. It held. If the security of the world's most critical maritime passages concerns you, if the decisions made by navies and governments in narrow waters like this one carry consequences for economies, for energy systems, and for the stability of regions that touch every nation on Earth, then stay informed. Understand what is being done in these waters, and why, and at what cost. The watch never ends. Neither should the attention we pay to it.